Hello class. This tutorial is about NURMS, non-uniform rational mesh smooth. Now hopefully you've done the previous tutorial prior to this where we introduced the concept of NURMS. So here we're looking at the master sword. This master sword has been UV unwrapped because hopefully you're following along with the class and keeping up to date, and you will have unwrapped it. Now you may have already collapsed your unwrap. If that's not the case, make sure you come over here and say collapse 2 to collapse that. Make sure that your UVs are baked in. Also, if you haven't already, now's a great time to remove the reference. So if it's still there, you can unhide all, unfreeze all, click on that reference, and then hit delete on your keyboard. Now that reference is gone because you don't need it anymore. Here's my sword. I have it selected. You'll see that I've named it. I'm going to just come over here and sword. I'm going to put underscore LP, oops, and hit enter. And so, because I want to keep my low poly sword as it is. Now I'm going to come up here and say edit, clone as a copy, and I'm going to change the name, which I can do right here, to HP. Naming your files is very important. So now I'm going to come up here to name selection sets. I'm going to come in and type in hi, Mr. HP sword. And then if I just click anywhere, I don't have anything selected. If I come down, what I typed in there, that allows me to select my high poly sword. So I can hide that. Now I can click on my low poly and say, this is the low poly. And I can hide that. So what we're going to start doing is we're going to start baking out our models, high poly to low poly, taking that high poly detail, turning it into textures. And so going through and creating name selection sets, and as you can see, you can call them anything you want as long as you know what they are. So I'm going to hide my low poly, and I'm going to come over to my high poly. Now with my high poly, I want to go in here, and I actually want to start prepping it so that it works well with NURMS. So as we talked before, if we come over here, edit poly has to be at the very bottom. If I click NURMS, totally mushes out my mesh. So what we got to do is get in here and actually start prepping the model. If I go into edge mode, you can see there's the cage and everything's being NURMed out from there. So let's come over here. We're going to do polygon modeling, and I want to use, so I'm going to come up here to edit, and I'm going to start using Swift Loop. So I'm going to click to activate that. And now when I come over here, as I hover over an edge, you can see that it's showing me where a new loop is going to go. So if I click and drop in that edge right there, look at that. I'm starting to go in and actually refine the shape of my model here. So this is going to help me keep kind of the main shape. And I may need to zoom in a bit closer to the model. Now, Swift Loop is going to work on edge loops. So if your model's made out of four-sided edges, it's going to work really, really great. If it's not made out of four-sided edges, it's probably not going to work quite as well. Working towards having models with four-sided edges is going to make you a better 3D artist. All right, it's going to give you better results, make your models higher quality. There we go. And so I'm just going to go through here, and I'm going to look at these different areas where I can start throwing these Swift loops in, kind of finding the shape so it doesn't just completely mush out. And just kind of make my way around here. Now I could do one side and just put symmetry on it. That would work. You're going to need to make sure that your symmetry works for your model, of course, if that's the route you're going to go. Let's see, we'll come out here to the outer edge. Let's get one in there too. There we go. So we can see how it's starting to come in here. We're really working to preserve kind of that overall shape of the model. And this is going to make it look really good. I'm going to hit F3 to go into wireframe so I can get in here and kind of define the bottom of this handle. And you really need to frame, oops, you really need to frame the top and the bottom of any of these main contours on your model. That's really where these loops come in important, right? Is just really defining those areas, those contours, so that if you were to bake out your high poly to low poly and you had giant gaps like that, it's going to create lots of rendering errors for you. So getting in here and just really defining those spaces is what's really important on these models. All right, and then we'll just kind of work our way through this guy, kind of defining these areas. And depending, you are going to end up with triangles here and there, and so sometimes, it's not going to work out exactly the way you were expecting on some of them. So let's go through. We'll keep defining as we work our way down. As we get closer, oops, Alt-Z to zoom in. As we kind of get down here, see now it's at a triangle, so I'm probably not going to swift loop there. Let's see, kind of look through more spots on my model where I can go through and do this. Probably come over here on the side. There's probably got to turn back on. Oh, still in swift loop, good. Okay, so we'll come back to this. Oops. Make sure, okay, so there we go, we did deactivate. You could grab the edit and just kind of pull that out, and then that floats it here. Alright, come back to swift loop. Let's turn off NURMS, and we'll just do kind of a spot check looking at our model. Alright, so it looks like we could probably drop one in right here, around this edge. This space is going to need it defined as well. And so we're just going through and really defining those key areas on our model as much as we can, kind of framing the mesh. All right, there we go. This one's tricky to get. Maybe what we'll do in this case is we're just going to come in here and actually click on the edge. I've right-clicked to get out of swift loop. I'm going to hit ring. And so that goes around, grabs all those edges. And what I could do in this case is actually just use connect as another option. And I'm going to use slide to slide that edge out kind of closer. And it's doing the same thing. And sometimes you just need to manually go in and do it like this, because swift loop isn't always going to be able to grab those edges exactly the way that you want. Go back to the other side, do the same thing. Or it's not always going to necessarily, swift loop isn't always going to necessarily behave exactly like you hoped. There we go. And kind of going through and just hitting those edges. Again, kind of coming in here. I really want to preserve these edges. And what I might do in this case is come all the way around and grab this one edge here. Yeah, that's not going to work. I'll just have to get this one side and then connect. Let's grab this one edge and connect him. But I just want to go the opposite direction. Take him out that way. There we go. And then do the same thing here. And then I'm just going to actually deselect the one at the very bottom. And then I'm going to connect him. Oops. He appears to be looping all the way around. So I'll have to come in and deselect those. There we go. And now if I hit connect, perfect. That's doing exactly what I want. And now because, oops, Alt-Z to zoom in, I can go into vertex, I can select this one point and this one down here and connect it. There we go. If I orbit around the other side, I could do the same thing. I think what I'm probably going to do at this point is just focus on one side, because then I know that I could go in and do symmetry. It's getting a little bit complicated to be doing everything. Alright, so this is taking me all the way along there, so I'm going to come in again, same thing, connect, but I'm going to just slide this over to that edge. There we go. That's looking pretty good. Yep, Oh, I'm going to grab this one edge here in the center and then do my connect. And it didn't do what I want, so I'm going to deselect that one in the center. And there we go. Okay. Let's grab all these edges. Double check where he's going. We'll do a connect on him. All right, same thing. He's kind of coming down, going all the way down to the tip. That's fine. Connect that. All right, there we go. That's looking pretty good. All right, let's turn our NURMS on and check it. All right, it's doing a better job. I think a really key area we need to get our NURMS going is right along the edge of the blade. That'll be pretty important to hit. Oops. Okay, yeah, this will be an important one to hit. There we go. Okay, and we'll go and we'll connect here. I think I might have too many. There we go. And now I can select this one point right here and come down and select this one at the very tip and connect. Oops. I'm going to just manually select all those and hit connect. There we go. Okay. All right. So our pivot, our origin is centered in my case on mine. So I can come in here. I could do a symmetry. And I'll just need to flip my axis for it to go left to right. And I'll do one more symmetry. And I just need to change it to Y and flip the axis there. So now it goes front to back. And what I'm going to do is right click and say collapse 2 and then just turn on NURMS to see my sword retaining its shape a lot better. There we go. See, a lot of those shapes and edges are holding up quite nicely. Really, the biggest one is down here at the very tip. So I could come in here and take a look at it and see what I could do to possibly get it to retain the edges down here. Probably add a couple more subdivisions. So what I could do is just grab all these edges. Oops, because you can manually, if it's not a ring, you could just manually come in and select them. And let's do a connect and try to slide it. All right, so sometimes you end up getting this craziness. All right, and you're like, oh boy, that's frustrating. So let's just set this to 0. And instead, what I'm going to do is use pinch. Set it to 2 segments, and then pinch will allow me to push them apart like this, kind of drag them down. That gives me one all the way at the bottom, one all the way at the top. And now when I do NURMS, it's going to hold its shape a lot better. Okay. So there we go. Now we have our sword, and we've gone through and done a pass to make it our high poly version. Right, it retains its shape fairly well using the NURMS, and we can go back in and we can turn that on and off. It looks like maybe in the bottom of it here, I think if I use my Swift Loop, I probably could have gone through and really quickly and easily just done it with Swift Loop, I see. So hopefully when I run through this with the class, you'll be paying attention. You'll know that at that point you could probably skip forward a little bit to see that yeah, it doesn't always quite work out, doesn't always end up being something that you totally need. I think what I might do with Swift Loop is actually kind of define this edge a little bit. I'll help with the baking, since it's not coming out that far anyways. Alright, there we go. So now we sort of got our shapes in here the way we were thinking. Okay, there we go. So now we end up with our high poly version of our sword. We turn on NURMS and we come over here. We can take a look at it and see how it has nicer edges on it. It looks a little bit more high poly. Okay. And that's the pass for doing NURMS on it. So you can see there's not an exact science to it. You're kind of going through and just defining areas. Sometimes you could go down rabbit holes that aren't quite what you were looking for. You should definitely save a lot as you go and be prepared to go back to a previous version. So, all right, there you go.